Hi there guys. Now if you've managed to perfect how to complete the square, the next thing to move on to is how to solve by this method. Now we're going to start off with a GCSE style one and then move on to the C1 ones, pretty sharpish. So what we're going to ask you to do is, because when we complete the square we're only interested really in these terms containing an x squared and an x, we're actually going to, let me just change colour, we're actually going to remove this term by subtracting it from both sides. So becoming x squared plus 8x is negative 10. Now let's complete the square. So we're going to half the coefficient of x is 4. Now we're going to subtract that coefficient, subtract this value squared. And that's going to give me minus 10 there. So now it's a matter of solving this equation. So if you think of what's the last thing that's happening to this x, is taking away 16, so that's what we're going to remove first. So let's add 16 to both sides. So it's going to give me x plus 4 squared, and if I add 16 to this I will get 6. Okay, so now I have to square root. That will give me x plus 4 on the left hand side. Sorry, my computer's been a bit slow. And the square root of 6. But it's very important to remember you get a plus and a minus value for every square root. And just to finish off, so just get rid of that. My computer's having a funny 5 minutes. So x is equal to negative 4. And I'll just repeat why I'm writing this one first in a minute. So it's plus and minus the square root of 6. Now, if we write this first, it just makes this bit look a little bit nicer. If you start with the plus and minus, it's very easy to forget it. And so this is our advice. Whether this is positive or negative, this last part, write the minus 4 first. So let's move on to something a little bit more challenging. So here we have this. Let's remove this constant term onto the other side, just so we get these two terms here on their own, because that's the bit I actually want to complete the square. So before we would factorize by this coefficient. Now because there's an equal sign, it means we don't actually have to do that. What we can do is just divide everything by 2. That would make our life much easier. You can't do that in normal factorizing because you're then changing the expression to half the size. But with solving, we just need to find x, so we are able to do that. If you want to do it by factorizing, you can, but you're going to make life far more difficult for yourself. So if we divide everything by 2, I would get this. What is my computer doing? Sorry guys, here it comes. And remember to do both sides. So everything's been divided by 2. Now let's complete the square. Oh my god. Here we go. So x take away 2, all squared. When I square this I will get 4, so I need to take that part away. Now, we just do the same as before. We're going to solve this equation just to get x on its own. So the last thing is this constant, so we need to get rid of that first. So what I like to do here is imagine 4 as a half, because if we're going to add fractions they need to be the same denominators. So 4 is 8 halves, that's 4. So we're going to add 8 halves to both sides. So on the left hand side I have x minus 2 squared kind of looks like a 2, and if we add on 8 halves we will get 1 half. Let's get rid of this squared, so we're going to have to square root it, and this one actually is going to get interesting in a minute. So if we square root this, what I'm going to do is this is what's happening, so it's the square root of a half, but that is also the same as this, which is also the same as that. Now this is the better way of writing it. However, let me just scroll down a tad. We cannot leave a surd as a denominator ever. It's bad practice. So we will be expecting you to, when you see this, to rationalize this denominator, multiplying top and bottom by root 2. So we'd have root 2 over 2. If this was another number there, so how many root 2's we would have. So let me just write this so it looks a bit neater. So x minus 2 is root 2 over 2. And let's not forget we have a positive and a minus value there. Now, to get x on its own, we're going to add 2. So it's a positive 2 plus or minus root 2 over 2. So there's two values. Remember, if on C1 this is non-calculator, so we're not going to ask you to go any further than this. Okay, one more. Let's try another one. So this one's going to be a bit of a harder completing the square, I think. It is. So rewrite this. So 2x squared plus 5x is negative 7. Divide everything by 2. So x squared plus 5 over 2 x equals minus 7 over 2. So we've got to half this coefficient here of x, so half of 5 halves, that's 5 quarters, so it'd be x plus 5 quarters. If you're not too sure how I did it so quickly, just write out 5 halves and then divide it by 2, you'll soon see what I did. Now I've got to take away this squared, so 5 quarters multiplied by itself, so that would be 25 over 16. And that is the same as that. Now we're going to have to add on 25/16 to both sides, and this isn't in 16ths, so it creates a problem. But if you times this one on the right by 8, you will get 56 over 16. So now what we're actually going to be doing is adding on 25/16, which is still going to be negative, but it'd be minus 31/16. Yep, that's right. So let's write this down here. So we're going to have x plus 5 quarters all squared is equal to a negative 31 over 16. Let's create a bit more space. Tad more. Okay, let's remove this. Oh, where's it going? Let's remove this squared by square rooting. So we're going to have x plus 5 quarters. Now, what I'm going to do here is, well, you can't actually square root a negative number. So what this actually means is this one has what we say no real roots. And in the next video, or depending on when you watch it, is about plotting graphs. What this actually means is that this graph will not cross here. It has no solutions because we cannot square root a negative number. So it's going to look something like that, with this point being 7. It could be on the other side, it could be wrong there, but it's not going to cross the x-axis, so it has no real solutions.